Welcome to Hatman Strikes Back Daily Boxing News. So Dillian Whyte appears to have pulled out with his fight with Joyce. This is according to TalkSport. You can see the headline here. Dillian Whyte pulls out of Joyce fight as organizers scramble to find last-minute replacement. The British heavyweights were set to headline a stacked Queensberry Promotions bill at the O2 Co-op Live Arena, Manchester on April 5. According to three well-placed sources, the reason for his withdrawal is an injury. Organizers are now scrambling to find a replacement opponent for Joyce on the same date. So we're talking about a month away. So there's a decent amount of time to find somebody. And because of the fact that there's 4 or 5 weeks, the quality of replacement might be fairly decent, or it'll be easier to get a fairly decent quality opponent when you've got that much notice. Generally, if it's a week's notice or even 2 weeks' notice, you're only going to get a journeyman in. We all know that we've just had the Martin Bakole situation where he replaced Daniel Dubois, and Martin Bakole was a top 10 heavyweight, but that's not the norm. That's the exception. So, yeah, what do you guys think about this? Dillian Whyte apparently pulling out. Now, this has not yet been confirmed, at least not as far as I'm aware, by Dillian Whyte himself or by Frank Warren, his promoter. Dillian Whyte does have some type of deal now with Frank Warren, Queensberry. And there's a lot of speculation that, well, first of all, he hasn't yet been confirmed. Therefore, hopefully, TalkSport have got this wrong, but they say that there's multiple sources that are reporting this to them. So hopefully they got it wrong, but perhaps they have it right. Some people are speculating, as is always the case when any fighter pulls out, there's speculation that this isn't the real reason, as in an injury. The real reason is maybe Dillian Whyte can't get his license because his last couple fights were not in the UK. One of them was in Ireland, and he fought under an Irish license, or maybe a foreign license in Ireland. And then the other one was in Gibraltar, which is like a British territory, but they've got their own commission and so on and so forth, as I understand it. So perhaps there was some issue with him getting his license. This is what people are speculating about. And therefore, they've had to come up with some excuse for him pulling out of the fight. Let me know what you guys think about this. But as I say, as it stands right now, we haven't got official confirmation. But this is the card. It's quite a stacked card in terms of the number of fights. And there's some decent ones on there. It'll be disappointing if Dillian Whyte has pulled out of the Joyce fight, because I was quite looking forward to that one. But there's still David Alalshikh versus Jamie TKV, which is an interesting one. And of course, Lawrence Okolie versus Richard Riakpo, which I'm personally interested in. I know a lot of other people are going to say, Lawrence Okolie and Richard Riakpo aren't exactly the two most exciting fighters. Well, in Okolie's last couple, he's been exciting. So hopefully he can keep that run going, and I'm picking him to win that fight, by the way. So again, this is a month from now. Going to turn it over to before we get to a few more bits of boxing news, going to turn it over to the chat and see what everybody thinks. Major K. Dot says, damn, no, he didn't. Wizbit says, another failed test. Mohammed says, oh man, was looking forward to the card. Somebody here says 25 stone Bakole to replace Dillian Whyte. Project 9 says still popping dirty, I guess. Martin says let's get Hrgovic against Joyce. That's a good shout. If Hrgovic is willing to take it on a month's notice, if he's in the gym, if he's in shape. They obviously fought in the WSB. And Joyce won, so that would be a rematch of sorts. Dr. Stevens says, put a call through to Martin Bakole again. Here we go. He will come and clear his check and give you less than 5 minutes of drama. Shout out to Blue Collar Sports TV. He says, Yoke would make sense. Fee Khabib says, it's Hammer, this is your chance to get a big name on the record, lad. Yeah, that's a good shout as well. The Just One says, could be a reason to set up the AJ rematch behind the scenes. I guess you mean AJ and Dillian Whyte. Yeah, could be. You never know. Although that'll be kind of treading on Well, no, it wouldn't really be treaded on Frank Warren's toes because Dillian Whyte is still a Frank Warren fighter. So if Frank Warren consented to that scheme of Dillian Whyte pulling out with an injury, quote unquote, against Joyce and then fighting Anthony Joshua for a lot more money, Frank Warren would still be getting his cut. So it's an interesting possibility. I'm not saying I necessarily agree, but it's an interesting possibility. Dazza says Whyte has failed another test. I heard he's finished. Where did you hear that? If that is the case, then yeah, he really is finished. But according to Talk Sport, it's an injury. So make of it what you will. If you guys can all stick a like on this live stream, it'll really help with visibility, particularly after the live stream is finished. So if you just take a split second to like the stream, I really appreciate it. We've got 179 concurrent viewers and only 14 likes. So if you can just stick a like on it, thank you in advance. Chris Santos says, do you think Dillian Whyte should call it a day? Yeah, I've been saying he should call it a day ever since he got knocked out by Fury. I think he should have called it a day a long time ago. AZH says, Peter Fury said Fury is ready if a heavyweight pulls out of that card. Okay. Yeah. Hughie Fury versus Joe Joyce, that's a decent replacement. Not that Hughie Fury is the most exciting fighter in the world, but again, for a relatively short notice replacement, that's perfectly decent. Gregory Russo says, Joyce should not be fighting anyone. His CTE is already happening. He should retire immediately. I'm assuming you're basing it on his speech, and a lot of people have said this, but personally, I don't notice any difference in his speech now to what it was like at the start of his career. Because I remember interviews with him at the start of his career where he literally couldn't get a word out. The interviewer had to answer questions that the interviewer asked. So he'd asked Joe Joyce a question. This was very early on in Joyce's career, long before he fought Zhang or anything like that. And Joyce, I remember it clearly, Joyce was there and he couldn't get his words out for like 10 seconds and the interviewer had to answer it for him. That was early on in his career. So yeah, lots of people are saying he's slurring his speech now and all this type of stuff, but he's always been like that since the very start. He's always had dodgy speech for whatever reason. AO says Joyce forgets what he's saying. Shout out to everybody in the live chat. If you could all just stick a like on this stream, it'd really help. I've got 226, 235 even concurrent viewers. If we can get 100 likes, I really appreciate it. So we can keep the concurrent viewers to like ratio at around 50%. That's where I like to keep it. So just stick a like on this stream for me, please. Devin says perhaps Whyte has failed another test. Yeah, somebody else suggested that earlier on. Shout out to Ra Holcomb. Big up. Fee Khabib says, where is Daniel Dubois? Has Turkey got him in a Saudi cell? Big up Alter Ego. Someone else says maybe Hrgovic in. Yeah, it's a good shout if Hrgovic is in shape, but it might be Hughie Fury because somebody said that Peter Fury said if any of the heavyweights pull out on this particular card, Hughie Fury's ready to step in. Just to show you the card again. It's got a number of heavyweights on it. Whyte Joyce obviously was supposed to be on there. Alalshikh versus TKV. It's got Delicious Ori making his debut. And Lawrence Okolie and Richard Riakporhe are heavyweights these days. So, yeah, Hughie Fury willing to step in on short notice according to somebody in the live chat there who said that that's what his dad, Peter Fury, is saying. But anyway, we'll move on from this bit of news for now. We'll come back to it if you guys have got more to say about this Dillian Whyte story, just to cover a couple more bits and bobs. So this was Turki Alalshikh responding to Tank Davis digging him out prior to the Lamont Roach fight. So Turki said, I don't blame Tank Davis for anything that he says. He doesn't know me. And if I put myself in his position, if he sees Crawford making in 2 fights more with, I mean, his English is not great here, Turki Alalshikh, right? But it's improving. I guess he meant to say more than 5 times than all what Tank made in his career. This is a natural reaction from him. We will let him keep talking, and we will continue making great cards, and Crawford will continue thinking how he will spend his money, right? So those are the words of Turki Alalshikh. Now, this is in response, as I say, to Tank digging him out, saying that a picture that he took with a bunch of fighters was demonic and all this type of stuff, which just seems ridiculous to me, because here we have Tank Davis, you know, putting women's wigs on and twerking and doing all kind of zesty behavior, and then he's got tattoos on his face, and I mean, he wants to talk about, you know, what demonic is and this, that, and the other. He should look at his own behavior, right, before he starts calling people demonic. I didn't see anything demonic about that picture. It was just in a nice venue and whatever. And he's also been saying or insinuating that Turkey is not good for boxing, or is PBC good for boxing? Anyway, this was all before his fight with Lamont Roach, which was controversial, obviously, because of the knockdown that didn't get called. And Tank Davis was digging out Turkey for the incident during the Hamza Shiraz fight, where he told Shiraz he was 2 rounds down. Now, Ade Oladipo actually addressed this. Ade Oladipo obviously works for the Zone, and he was there. And he said that Turkey basically there was a monitor near Turkey which was showing the DAZN broadcast, and whichever pundit or commentator was scoring the fight for DAZN, his scorecard flashed up on the screen, and he had Adames 2 rounds ahead against Hamza Shiraz. So Turkey was reacting to what was on the screen for the DAZN scorecard. So it's not like he went around looking at the judges, because this is what people were putting on social media. This is what Tank was running with, and all of the sycophantic journalists. It's incredible. Have you seen the American so-called journalists, the YouTubers who interview Tank? They're all just up his butt crack. It's unbelievable how sycophantic they all are. It's unreal. I've never seen anything like it. Well, I probably have, but you know, the Floyd Mayweather era, they were all sycophantic with him as well. So yeah, there was Tank Davis basically insinuating that there was corrupt activity going on with Turkey and that Hamza Shiraz fight. And then he goes in there against Lamont Roach, takes a knee, a knockdown should have been called, but somehow it wasn't. So he's got the audacity to be talking about corruption and stuff like that happens in one of his fights, you know? And you know, the way that Tank behaves in the ring, it's like he is the person in charge, even over the referee. And that's how Mayweather used to be. If you go back and watch Mayweather fights, he would even act like he was in charge of the referee. And maybe he was, from a political perspective, you know, boxing politics. Anyway, Turkey has since clapped back after the Tank Davis Lamont Roach fight with this. Now, Willis, the referee, is it Steve Willis? Surname is Willis anyway. With the crazy eyes, we all know him. He's normally a good ref. But Turki Alalshikh posted this picture. You can see there he says, no knockdown. And he's kind of like shrugging in the emoji. Is he insinuating that Willis can't see properly because he's got these weird eyes? That's what he seems to be doing. That's what I deduce from this particular post. He's insinuating the guy can't see properly, and that's why he didn't call that particular incident a knockdown, as he should have done. So I thought that was pretty funny. You know, one of the things that Eddie Hearn's always saying is that behind the scenes, Turki Alalshikh is like a proper joker. He's really funny. Whenever he calls Eddie Hearn, Eddie says he's ripping into him every time, you know. All sorts of lads banter. And we have seen a little bit of it from Turki Alalshikh. He is like kind of getting a bit more comfortable on camera and a bit more comfortable speaking English on camera, more importantly. So, yeah, nice bit of banter there for him. And he does tweet some funny things. I mean, we remember when he went at Canelo. When was it, a year ago or something? 6 months ago? They've obviously patched things up since that time. But yeah, what do you guys think of the Tank Davis, Turki Alalshikh back and forth? Because Tank Davis, of course, is the last domino, is the last major fighter that I can think of off the top of my head who isn't yet doing business with Turki Alalshikh. Shout out to Matt for the super chat. He says, Dillian Whyte testing positive for PEDs again, ban him for life. Well, I haven't heard any news about that. There are people speculating that he's tested positive. TalkSport are the ones reporting this story, and they're saying that he's pulled out with an injury. So it remains to be seen whether the talks of an injury are a cover story or whether that's what's really going on. But shout out to Matt for the super chat. Some people are again suggesting Mose the Town is stepping in for Dillian Whyte. People saying that picture is, PK said that picture is killing me, of Willis the referee. Truth Seeker says Dylan's track record don't lie. Yeah, but as much as his track record is of failing PED tests, we know that. Has he failed one here? We don't know yet. We have to find out. I mean, it's very possible he could be injured. He's had many injuries in his career. So we'll wait and see. Shout out to Ivan from Croatia. Big up, big up. He says, who do you think is a bigger cheater, Dillian Whyte or Big Baby Miller? Now, that's a good question. That is a real good question. Who is a bigger cheater, Dillian Whyte or Miller? Now, I want to say Miller because of the fact that he was found with so many different substances in his system. Dillian Whyte has failed how many tests? He got 2-year ban early on in his career for a failed test, although that was an over-the-counter supplement, to be fair. It was an over-the-counter supplement which got banned about 2 weeks before Dillian Whyte took it. So maybe we can give him a pass on that one. But then he obviously failed or had some kind of adverse finding ahead of the Rivas fight. That was the second time. And then there was the AJ rematch, which never was, where he failed. And we don't know what he failed for. We just know that, as far as I can remember anyway, did they report what he failed for? And there was no resolution to that. So God knows what's going on there. If he's failed another one, yeah, surely it's the end of Dillian Whyte. But I want to say Miller is the bigger cheat because he's failed multiple times as well. And when he failed in the run-up to the AJ fight that never was, it was for loads of different substances, serious substances, stuff that you actually have to inject. You know what I mean? Crazy. And Mr. Luca asks a good question. He says, so how much will Turki pay Bud exactly? He's claiming it's 5 times what Tank has made in his whole career. I seriously doubt it's going to be that much. I seriously doubt it. I'm sure Tank has made $20 million purses before, hasn't he? Or at least $15 million purse. So I think Turki's kind of maybe exaggerating a bit there. If Crawford gets 50 million, he'll be doing extremely well from the Canelo fight. You know what I mean? If he's making 50 million, that'd be a crazy payday for him. Shout out to Matt again for the super chat. He says, can we also talk about how sad of a career Sandor Martinez had? Yeah, I've not yet watched this fight from the weekend where he lost and people are saying he was hard done by once again. Who is Sandor Martin promoted by? Is he with Top Rank? Is he promoted by them? Because if that is the case, then they appear to be using him as an opponent and they're not really giving him a push. The first time that Sandor Martin came onto my radar was when he beat Was it Mikey Garcia he beat? You guys correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't he beat Mikey Garcia? And Garcia retired after that? And then he went in there with Teofimo Lopez, and many people feel like he beat Lopez. He dropped him in the fight. And so, yeah, another defeat over the weekend, and people are saying it was a controversial decision. Did anybody else see the fight? I'm assuming Matt saw the fight on the weekend with Sandor Martin. Shout out to Matt again for the super chat. He says, do you think this fight for Tank is like Floyd's Maidana? I think he will come back much better. I suspect in a rematch he would do much better against... I've forgotten his name now. Against Roach, excuse me. Yeah, I suspect he would do much better against Roach in a rematch. I suspect so. So maybe, yeah, it could be his Maidana. I think there may be a combination or variety of different reasons that Tank didn't do that well against Lamont Roach. One of them might just be that he lacked motivation because he's getting bored in boxing, because he's not challenging himself. He's been talking about retirement a lot over the past 12 months. Shout out to Merzo Man for the super chat. He says, I think Miller taking all those substances was him looking for a way out of the AJ fight to this day. At times, AJ looked a formidable force. Now, that's an interesting take. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I'm not in Miller's head. So I can't say that you're wrong. But shout out to Merzo Man for the super chat. Personally, I suspect Miller did want the fight and he wasn't trying to get out of it, but I think he's just like a pretty extreme narcissist. He might even be a psychopath, Jarrell Miller. And the thing about psychopaths is they always over-egg the pudding. They always push it to a bizarre extent. If any of you have ever looked into, for example, Ted Bundy, the famous American serial killer, he escaped police custody, I think at least twice. And the first time when he escaped, or one of the times when he escaped police custody, he fled to another state. Now, this was during a time when there wasn't a lot of communication between law enforcement in different states. So you could literally disappear from one state, go to another state, and start a new life, and nobody would be any the wiser. So he had opportunities, because he was getting prosecuted for multiple homicides, and he was looking at the death penalty. And he had the opportunity to just walk away from that life of serial killing, right? And live normally. But he was compelled, I think within a month, I forget which state it was where he escaped, but he ended up in Florida. I think it was Florida. And within a month, he was killing people again. But this is what, obviously that's an extreme example. A serial killer is an extreme version of a psychopath, right? Most psychopaths are not even violent, but yeah, they tend to push it beyond what would be rational or logical. They just push their luck to a ridiculous extent. And Fee Khabib says, comparing Big Baby to Ted Bundy is nasty work. Well, obviously he's not as extreme and bad as Ted Bundy, but I'm just talking about the mentality. If Big Baby Miller is a psychopath, this is what they tend to be like. They just push it and push it and push it to the point where a normal person is going to say, why would you do that? Do you know what I mean? But their narcissism and their deep sense of like self-belief, actually. Psychopaths have incredible self-belief, most of them, that they can get out of any situation and get themselves out of any type of jam. They have this hubris about them. So I think that's more what it is with Jarrell Miller. He just feels like he can talk his way out of anything and get himself out of anything, and that's why he behaves the way he does. He's just extremely narcissistic. Lost Poet says Miller has become a better human being ever since he embraced Islam, as that's what Islam does. It brings out the best version and makes you a better person. I respectfully completely disagree. I don't think you can change someone like Jarrell Miller at all. And if he is a psychopath, and I can't tell you that he is, but I suspect he might be, most clinical forensic psychologists will tell you that you cannot cure psychopathy. They're like that for life. That's just how they are. There's no change in them. In fact, anyone who's read, for example, Dr. Robert Hare's book, Without Conscience, Dr. Robert Hare is the guy who came up with the diagnostic test for psychopathy. And he was, and still is, a practicing, psychologist and whatever. He worked in the prison system and whatnot. And he and many other professionals in the field, experts in the field, will tell you that when you try to treat psychopaths, you tend to actually make them worse. Yeah. It's a personality disorder where when you try to treat it, their behavior becomes worse. And the reason that it becomes worse is because psychopaths are always looking for ways to try and fool you into thinking that they're reformed. So when you send them into one of these programs to get treated or whatever, right? And they're being told, what acceptable human behavior is, and they're being taught about other people's emotions and how you impact on their emotions and all this type of stuff. That just allows them to download data and become even more devious and even more adept at fooling you. This is what tends to happen when they try to treat psychopaths. You just make them worse. Exactly what Telstar said there. Some may use therapy as a way to aid. That's exactly what psychopaths tend to do. You send them to therapy or anything like that, it's going to make them worse. So, yeah. Jarrell Miller, I don't think, can be reformed. Again, not saying he's a psychopath, but he's certainly got some psychopathic traits. He's definitely a pretty extreme narcissist, Jarrell Miller, for sure. Obviously, narcissism and psychopathy are different. Most narcissists are not psychopaths, but pretty much all psychopaths are narcissistic in the extreme. R says, what is the name of the book you mentioned? The book is called Without Conscience. Yeah, you can buy it on Amazon. It's only like probably £10 or something. Without Conscience. It's by a guy called Dr. Robert Hare. Yeah, Dr. Robert Hare, Without Conscience. Shout out to Matt again for the super chat. He says, Joyce needs to retire. He's on the road to becoming like G-Man. The commission should ban him from fighting with his current cognitive decline. Yeah, I addressed this actually earlier on in the chat because somebody else made a similar comment. But personally, I don't see the cognitive decline with Joyce. I think he's no worse than he was early on in his career when he could barely string a sentence together. Maybe people are only just watching Joyce interviews now, but like to me, Joyce was, from the interviews I remember early on in his career, always slurring his speech and sounding terrible. Shout out to Blue Collar Sports TV. It says, narcissism is a spectrum, in my opinion. It absolutely is a spectrum. I mean, if you've ever studied the work of Sigmund Freud, he talked about narcissism being a spectrum. In fact, he mentioned healthy levels of narcissism because the word narcissist is thrown around so liberally now and so loosely. The definition of it has become, how can I even describe it? It's not being defined properly the way people use it. But yeah, Freud talked about healthy levels of narcissism. Somebody says, is psychopathy a spectrum? It is, but basically there's a minimum qualifying number. So if you take the Hare test and score above a certain number, then you would qualify as a psychopath, basically. So there are different degrees of psychopathy, right? On the most extreme end, you've got serial killers. who are like the most extreme psychopaths. So there are degrees of it. But obviously, at the core of every psychopath is no empathy and no conscience. That's what links them all. That's the common trait they all have, whether they're a psychopath in the office, a psychopathic ex-girlfriend or, spouse, boyfriend, whatever, a psychopathic boxer, or even someone as extreme as a serial killer. What they all have in common is no empathy and no conscience. Some of them express that lack of empathy and lack of conscience in a far more extreme fashion than others. Ed says, Hatman, who was Britain's worst serial killer? Well, I think officially it's Harold Shipman, right? But unofficially, there were probably far worse than him. As in people that maybe weren't caught, or the true extent of their crimes was never uncovered. A Chainsaw says, narcissistic, is my understanding correct that it's when you think the world revolves around them? Yes, well, it's from the old the Greek fable of Narcissus, the person who stared into his own reflection and was in love with himself. So it's based upon that. People who are in love with themselves, basically, self-obsessed, self-absorbed. I'm sure, most people have met narcissism is a very common personality trait, particularly in today's social media world. Particularly with females, actually. Loads of females, because of social media, the attention they get on social media and dating apps, have become extremely narcissistic, self-absorbed, self-obsessed, always talking about themselves. They see themselves in, very grandiose. There's a lot of self-aggrandizement and all that type of stuff. Mark Hatch says, who is the best psychopath? Best? Don't you mean worst? Okay, Dead Dog Tony says, unrelated question, Hatman. Did you see the post about the alleged earnings for the Bivol Beterbiev 2 card? Apparently, Bacoli got 600K. I find it hard to believe they risked everything for that. Yeah, I saw very different reports about what Bacoli was earning. I saw the one that said he was earning 600K, but then Gareth A. Davis said that Bacoli got something like 2 or 3 million. He literally said that in an interview. It might have been with Adeola Depot. He was saying that he heard Bacoli got about 2 or 3 million. So maybe it could be this. It could be that Bacoli was given 2 or 3 million for 2 or 3 fights. Do you know what I mean? Promised, okay, we're going to pay you, let's say 3 million over 3 fights if you agree to fight Joe Parker on late notice. So that would be maybe 600K for the Parker fight and then the rest for the other 2 fights. Do you know what I mean? So that might be why there are different reports about the amount he got. Lost Poet says, most people don't know this, but narcissist doesn't always mean they love themselves. A narcissist can hate themselves. It just means they center themselves around everything. One of the first things I was taught when I studied psychology in college is that there are different schools of thought within psychology. Psychology is not a science. You cannot weigh, measure, or count human emotions. And at the end of the day, you can't read people's minds. You're interpreting what they're thinking and how their minds work based upon their behavior and the things that they say. So different psychologists will have a different opinion about whether somebody actually hates themselves or loves themselves. And, it's not cut and dry. And also, psychologists will disagree on who's a narcissist and who isn't a narcissist. So a lot of psychology is really opinion based, you know? Again, this is why it's not a science. But with, the core of what a narcissist is they're self-obsessed. They're absolutely obsessed with themselves. Now, whether that self-obsession is driven by insecurity or whether that self-obsession is driven by just genuine love for themselves, it's on a case-by-case basis, right? And you're speculating about what's going on in the person's mind. Okay, Blade is saying a source is putting out Bacoli's purse was only 800K. Somebody said 600 earlier on. Alter Ego says 600K in a 2-fight deal sounds good. Is it just a 2-fight deal or a 3-fight deal? I could have sworn it was a 3-fight deal. I might be wrong. A shout out to Devin in the chat. He says Whyte pulled out. Why? They're saying it's because of an injury. That's what TalkSport are reporting. An injury. Somebody says Gad reported it. Well, I definitely saw Gad say that Bacoli was getting 2 or 3 million. 100% I saw him say that. Heard him say it in an interview. I think it was with Adeola Depot. So, was his information wrong? Maybe. I don't know. But that's what he said in that interview. But that could be 2 or 3 million over the course of 2 or 3 fights. So 2 or 3 million total for 3 fights. Lost Poet says, speaking of narcissists, why is every woman's ex a narcissist or abusive? Yeah, women who love bandying that word around all the time for an ex-boyfriend. Oh, my ex-boyfriend was a narcissist. You need to watch out for that woman. In many cases, she will actually be the narcissistic one. So you need to watch out for women who are constantly just very liberal in calling people narcissists. See, I'm very, very cautious with calling anyone a psychopath, for example. Whenever I've done videos and live streams in the past where I talk about psychopathy, everybody's like, oh, do you think this guy's a psychopath and that guy's a psychopath? And I'm very, very cautious because you need to know a lot about someone. You really need to have met them in person and be around them and, seen them in different situations over a long period of time before you can come to that type of conclusion with any degree of certainty. And obviously, ideally you get them tested with a hair test and various other diagnostic methods. Now, some people, of course, because their crimes are so extreme, it's far easier to point that finger at them. But with most people, it's not. So I'm very, very cautious when it comes to like boxers and promoters and all these type of people with sticking that label on somebody. It'd be irresponsible to just liberally go, this one's a psychopath and this one. It's irresponsible. With narcissism, because it's far more common than psychopathy, people can be a bit more liberal with it, but specifically with women who are constantly calling their exes narcissists, that's a red flag for me. That's a red flag, because from what I've seen in the modern day, there's more narcissism in the West anyway, among females than there is among males, because females generally are more vain anyway. They're more vanity driven than males are generally. And vanity, because of the obsession with personal image and all that, can easily cross over into narcissism, especially when you're on social media as a female and you're getting loads of likes and inboxes and all these simps in your inbox promising you the world. That can very, very easily develop into narcissism. So it's kind of ironic that it's females who tend to use the word and accuse men of being narcissistic more so than the other way around. So here we have an idiot who's going to get blocked for his stupidity. He says, remember when Hatman claimed the Tama would break Mike Tyson's record and clean up the heavyweight division by 20? Yeah, I literally never said that. I said, I hope he breaks Mike Tyson's record. I never said he would do it. So you're a donut who gets blocked. These idiots, man. They must want to get blocked. Coming out here lying through their teeth. Okay, Michael before says Chris Mannix did a podcast on Ring Magazine and he said Martin made $3 million. Yeah, so that figure is out there. It's just whether it was $3 million for the one fight or whether it's $3 million for a multi-fight deal. Blade says men have always said their ex is a nightmare. Yes, but they've never used these like clinical terms. You didn't used to hear men say, oh, my ex-girlfriend is a narcissist or whatever, or a psychopath. Very rarely would you hear men say stuff like that. They would say a nightmare, yeah. But that's a very vague and ambiguous term that could be applied to anybody, really, right? So I don't have an issue with men saying my ex is a nightmare, because it probably is a nightmare for him, especially when there's kids involved. The amount of men I've seen get torn apart because of an issue that they have with their ex, who they have a child with or several children with. The amount of men I've seen torn apart over situations like that, it's not even funny. Anyway, peeps, I'm going to draw the curtain on this one. Just wanted to do a quick live about the Dillian Whyte situation, just to bring it full circle for those of you who didn't catch the start of the stream. Dillian Whyte pulls out a Joyce fight as organizers scramble to find last-minute replacement. The British heavyweights were set to headline a stacked Queensberry Promotions bill at the Co-op Live Arena Manchester on April 5. According to 3 well-placed sources, the reason for his withdrawal is an injury. Organizers are now scrambling to find a replacement opponent for Joyce on the same date. And this is the card, of course. Dillian Whyte versus Joyce was supposed to be on there. Adelaide versus TKV still going ahead as of right now. Also, Lawrence Okolie versus Richard Riakpo. Somebody in the live chat claimed that Peter Fury, in an interview I have to assume very recently, said that Huey would be ready and willing to step in at a moment's notice if any heavyweight on this card pulled out. So let's see whether they get Huey Fury in there against Joyce. So yeah, that's that. More information, more details hopefully will come out about Dillian Whyte's situation. Whether it's a genuine injury or whether it's a cover story for something else, right? We shall see. So, yeah. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Just wanted to do a quick stream and get this news out. See you on the other side. Oh, and actually, before I go, I just got a little plug here. Some people have already switched off, I'm sure. Before I go, little plug. Check out my old music. Yeah, I used to make music back in the days. And it's all dated on this channel. There's a channel called The Bottomless Drink on Rumble. I'll leave a link in the description to this channel. There's been a couple of tracks added. Of my old mixtape tracks added. And yeah, spitting the hot bars, spitting that fire. Loads of people are liking the track Moses, which I recorded back in 2014. So that's a very popular one. So check out that one. But there's also a couple of other ones which were recently uploaded to this channel. One of them is called Wounded in Action. Loads of people are liking that one. And the most recent one is called Brixton 98. So check out some of my old music there. Spitting fire bars on the Bottomless Drink on Rumble. Again, I'm going to add a link to this channel in the description below. So anyway, over and out. You guys take care, take it easy, be good. I'll catch you on the next one.